Hey TCS TV viewers, it's Dave and Evelyn from the Camera Store. Today we're coming to you from Nanton, Alberta.
And that's because we have a hands-on review of the Canon EOS R5. Dave, all this time I thought you were a city guy through and through, but as it turns out you actually know how to ride a horse. I'm proud of you.
I certainly can. Now, I have a cousin Trish and her husband. They own 8 acreage outside of Calgary, and it's great because they do train horses for bell racing and calf roping and a bunch of other Western sports. So we went out there the other night and got a chance to really watch them practice and train and see some of the procedures. It was a lot of fun. Nice. So I am loving this 70-200 2.8 RF lens. It's perfect for the distance that I'm shooting here. Shooting 8,000th of a second at f2.8 and let my ISO just be on automatic. We have a lot of light here today, and at 20 frames a second, the R5 is capturing the action amazingly well. It's so great to have those fleeting moments captured in the most small increments you can to really pick out that winning shot.
Right now I have the camera set on prioritizing animals for the tracking autofocus, and the interesting thing is with the rider and the horse is that it is recognizing the horse. However, when the person is close enough in the frame or turned towards me, then all of a sudden it still prioritizes the human. So it seems to me that even if you have it turned into animal detection, it still wants to prioritize the human figure. So also with animal eye detection, it does an excellent job of tracking animals such as dogs or cats, the domestic animal's eye. And so even though this beautiful chocolate colored dog is in the shadow, it's still able to pick up the eye no problem. And this is really important when you're shooting with an 85mm f1.2 lens, because the focus is just so narrow with the depth of field that you want to make sure that you get those eyes in sharp focus. But the results that I'm getting so far are looking excellent.
We lucked out today for our shoot because it's a beautiful, hot, sunny day here in southern Alberta, and I'm loving it. Now, we do have on the R5 a really nice rear screen, but I'm finding that it's so bright outside that I rarely use it. I'm primarily using the viewfinder, and it's a 5.69 million dot viewfinder, and it's gorgeous. You can set it for 60 hertz, or for faster action, you can shoot 120 hertz, which is going to smooth out that motion. And I'm using that a lot. Now, it drains a little bit more battery power, but it makes the motion as you're tracking it a lot smoother. Ergonomically, the camera fits very good in the hand, and I do appreciate that they got rid of that multi-function bar. The more that I think about it, the more I despised it, actually. I do like this 8-way controller, and I like that we have 3 controls at my fingertips and at my thumb that allow me to control shutter speed, aperture, and ISO.
One of the features that I'm glad that they've kept on from the EOS R is the little shutter curtain covering the sensor. And this is excellent because when we're out here and it's dusty, there's a bit of a breeze going on, I'm not going to worry too much about dust getting into the sensor. And so if I pop the lens off, we have the shutter curtain over the sensor, and then I can just easily, without worry, change lenses, and I'll be good to go.
The R5 features a brand new 45 megapixel sensor. In the past, we had the 5DS and 5DSR with its 50 megapixel sensor, but a much more limiting dynamic range than this sensor has to offer.
Yeah, this sensor does produce images that have a lot of latitude to them. We're talking about 15 stops of dynamic range, and I'm seeing that these image files give you so much flexibility in how you frame up your shots. You can be a lot more creative, especially in tricky lighting scenarios. And when you're shooting action like this, sometimes you might not be in the best possible place to be able to capture the right angle of the action. And so when you're able to play around with that dynamic range and the latitude in post, it gives you a lot more flexibility, a lot more options.
We've been shooting the R5 for a little while now. Quite honestly, I'm having trouble finding big fault when it comes to stills.
Yeah, I mean, with the EOS R, there was a lot of problems, and it seemed like Canon was holding back from what they were able to do. And this camera, they've done an excellent job on the still photography side. The autofocus is amazing. I mean, it rivals Sony, and that hasn't happened in a long time. Sony had such a major lead, and now it would be difficult to see the difference between the two in terms of tracking abilities.
Yeah, we have crazy fast autofocus. We have great frames per second. We have great ergonomics, implementation of the controls and a great viewfinder. And a first for Canon, it has in-body image stabilization. I've been shooting a ton of stills over the last half hour or so, and I switched over to video and I wanted to do some 4K 120, but I already had the overheating symbol already there, and it only gave me a minute or so of 4K 120. I got one pass down, and the second pass it wouldn't let me, it has to cool down. I had to switch back to photo modes to carry on. We've been shooting for about 2 hours here. Tons of photos, of course. I can't remember how many shots I've taken, but a lot. But it's about 2 hours worth of shooting time, and my battery is dying, and I didn't bring an extra one with me, so we're off to the truck to grab another one. So be mindful of this. If you're going to have a longer shooting day, pack 2, maybe 3 batteries along with you. It's been about half an hour since I shot that last video where the camera went into the heat protection mode. Now, I've been shooting still since then and has no problem whatsoever, but I just wanted to shoot another video clip with this great golden light, but the camera's still in that warning mode and it won't allow me to shoot any video. I think the only solution is to actually shut the camera off and give it a lot of time to cool down on its own. But it's pretty frustrating if I want to shoot some video clips here and there, but I just can't.
Dave, you can barely let go of this camera. In fact, I think you hogged it for a week prior to us actually doing this review together. But what is it about the EOS R5 that you think makes this hit the mark better than their previous mirrorless cameras?
When I first picked up this camera, it noticed it focused much faster than the EOS R did. And it was
big time.
Right? And it's substantially better right off the bat. And I fell in love with it right then and there.
One of the focus modes that I love in this camera is initial focus point select. And so this is something that isn't turned on by default, but you can go into the menu, you can find it, and then what you can do is use the joystick to select where your initial focus point is going to be. And if you want it to start in the middle, you just have to tap the middle of the joystick, and then it's going to start your focus point right in the middle, and then you can frame your shot and then use that as your tracking point. If you want to start it off to the side, you can move it really quickly, and I love that having the joystick gives you the ability to look through the electronic viewfinder and do all of your focus point selection to get your tracking started.
It's wicked how it tracked the face there.
Yeah, and actually I'm impressed also, by the way. My lens is a little bigger than yours tonight, Dave.
Sometimes people overcompensate for certain things. I don't think I need to, but I appreciate you pointing that out.
I'm actually really impressed with how well the EF lens is performing on this with the adapter. I'm seeing that the autofocus tracking is still keeping up with it, and I'm not noticing a visible difference between using an RF lens as compared to the EF lens. When you're shooting fast action like this and you want to be able to time your shots, it's important that you don't have any of the electronic viewfinder blackout that we saw in earlier mirrorless cameras. These cameras are getting so close to shooting with an optical viewfinder that there really isn't very much downside to shooting with a mirrorless camera versus a DSLR. You're seeing what you get and you're able to time your shots, and not having that blackout is excellent when you're shooting action.
It is such a well-rounded camera when it comes to stills. The ability to shoot 20 frames per second or 12 mechanical. Now with that though, I found 20 frames electronic was a bit tough to shoot, especially in a louder environment or maybe too much distractions going on, but I was blasting way more frames than I was expecting during 20 frames a second because there's no sound, there's nothing. There's a little frame on the screen that turns white and kind of flickers a little bit that tells you you're shooting.
Yeah.
But you just rack up a ton of frames without realizing you are because there's no feedback. 12 frames a second is sufficiently fast enough for most subjects we were shooting. And I like that you could actually hear the shutter and feel the shutter through the camera enough that you were taking pictures.
And it is a really nicely well-dampened shutter as well. It feels really nice, and I do like that feedback as well. And I found myself actually shooting more mechanical than electronic just for that very reason.
When it comes to shooting all kinds of events, I'm having trouble, like I said, finding fault with it as a stills camera.
Yeah, really, I think the only thing is for a DSLR shooter moving over to the Canon camera is going to be battery life, and it's just something that you have to contend with and buy some extra batteries. It's really not that big of a deal.
This is definitely the camera that people that were running 5D3s and 5D4s, they were hesitant to go into the EOS R. And they didn't have dual memory card slots, and it had wasn't fast enough and didn't feel like it was quite there to replace the 5D3, 5D4 crowd. This camera here, we're going to see a wave and a host of people dumping their 5D4s and 5D3s in the used market because finally they've got an amazing camera that works great, but they also have some amazing lenses to back it up.
But there is one serious caveat that we have to touch on, and that actually speaks to our own workflow.
Exactly.
And so we wanted to shoot this review using the R5, and so we started running through some tests to see how we would be able to do that. And there's a few problems. One of them might seem kind of minor, but it's a big deal for us, is that there's no way currently for us to run dual audio into the camera. And that's how we always shoot. We like to have dual lavs. And so without using an external recorder, we're not able to do that with R5.
No, we love our Panasonic GH5 because of that.
Practically, the overheat issue for the work that we do, where we're doing longer takes, we're shooting coverage, and sometimes when we have to shoot between doing still photography and video, is the overheat problem. And even though it's a fairly cool night for August in Canada, we still have problems, and it doesn't seem to really be affected by the ambient temperature at all. In fact, we've seen a lot of other people test this rigorously, including people like Gerald Undone, and you can check out their charts to see exactly the different kinds of times that you can get. But for us, the biggest thing is that when the camera is locked up and you're not able to shoot any more video, that's a major problem. Of course, you can dumb it down, you can shoot some other modes, but at the same time, when we're actually working on a project like this, we can't be waiting for the camera to cool down for long periods of time.
I'm primarily a stills guy, but I want to get more and more into video, and this camera I thought would be a fantastic hybrid camera. I mean, I'm not really concerned about 8K whatsoever, but 4K would be really nice, and I found myself frustrated when I switch over to video. I'm like, great, I'm going to shoot, some video here, but it's limiting me to like a minute or 2 minutes worth of video.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard all the buzz about what's going on with this problem, it's that it just doesn't have that sustainability to become a professional tool on the video side of things in that way. And so if you're, say, like a wedding photographer that also likes to do some video work, you better make sure that you have a second body, because you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. It has the ability, it seems like it's, it's the new technology, the latest and greatest, but it has those limitations, and it's something that you'd have to work with if this is the camera that you want to be able to do that with.
Yeah, all the video features are making great headlines, but in real world, I'd be looking for a separate video camera if that's where I want to go.
Exactly. Of course, we want to know, what do you guys think of the Canon EOS R5? We certainly love it. We really do think that it's the best Canon camera that's come out in a very long time. And we want to know, what do you guys think of it? Is it good for still photography? What do you think about the video limitations? Let us know in the comments below.
Make sure you follow us on Instagram.
And if you're new to our channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so we can catch you again very soon.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you want to check out our latest review, click up here. If you want to check out the gear used in this video, click down here.